I am super, super excited to have Natalia Sanyal with me today. Natalia, we connected, I think, around mid-COVID 2022. It's been a couple of years. You've been on my radar. Your
Yeah.
vibe on LinkedIn online is just so, it is unique, period. I'm not going to qualify. I'm not going to say it's kind of unique. It is unique, and it's what drew me to you. And as I do with my other podcast guests, rather than speaking for you, I would rather have you answer the question for yourself. So when people ask you, like, what is it that you do
Uh-huh.
professionally, or how do you answer that question? How do you keep busy?
So I am an antidepressive marketer and I teach humanity first brands to harm less and sell better. That's my little spiel. And I wanted to say that you were one of the first people that I connected with on LinkedIn in 2022. That's when I joined LinkedIn. And I can't believe that we're still in touch. It's so
I know.
lovely.
I
Yeah.
haven't scared you off, right? And
You know.
I remember that sort of that concept of anti-harm.
Mhm.
I didn't exactly know what it meant, but my
Mm.
body felt it, like somewhere in my spirit or my soul. I was like, I resonate with that. Whatever that means, I'm not sure, but I
Yeah.
love it. And so tell me a little bit more about what that means for you or maybe for your clients. What does anti-harm mean?
Yeah, that's that a reaction to anti-oppressive marketing is very common. People can like feel it, but they
Yeah.
don't really know what it means. So basically, what I'm trying to capture in that phrase is the fact that marketing was built off of colonizer ideals, exploitation. There's a lot of that in marketing. There's a ton of that in digital marketing in particular.
Mm.
And that is my focus. It's probably in traditional offline marketing as well, but there's a lot of manipulation, lack of inclusivity in marketing, and basically disregard of like any kind of impact that marketing has on people because we are so busy prioritizing profit that we just don't really care
Mm.
about how it impacts the humans. So anti-oppressive marketing is asking that we consider the humans as well as profit.
I love it. Yeah, people over profit, but also, organizations and companies, and both you and I are in business to,
Yeah,
feed our
we want you
family and to,
money. Yeah.
but not at the expense of people or the planet or purpose or
Yeah,
passion.
exactly.
So I'm a word nerd. I consider myself a wordsmith, English being my second language. I'm always curious maybe your genesis story. How did you get involved with the written word as a
Oh,
profession?
oh, okay. Well, I English was my worst subject in school. And I could never crack, like I got the same percentage every year. It was an A, it was 86%, but it was really annoying because I could never go a little bit higher than that.
Mm.
And I was always frustrated because unlike math, it's very subjective. So I felt like I could, somehow sway my teacher into giving me a higher grade, but that never happened. My sister was actually the word nerd and the wordsmith. She was great at writing. I was more the art kid.
Mm.
And then, yeah, I think when my kid was born, I started blogging. And that's how it was a form of self-expression. That's what it was first and foremost. It was because I had started an online business and that was my like, oh, I need to start like marketing myself. What do people do? They do blogs and social media. So that's how I kind of started doing it. But there was a lot of like creative expression in the way that I wrote. And that was how it all started back in 2011.
And do you remember, was it a WordPress based website? I'm curious. I'm a nerd
Yes.
about those things.
Yes, it was WordPress and like I made it myself and I really hope nobody can find it.
Now I'm gonna dig, and I'm a digger, so I'm gonna try to locate it.
Oh
There's
God.
that like concept of digital decay and
Oh,
finding things and spelunking, right, to see what we can find. Do you remember what type of topics did you write
yes.
about early on?
Motherhood. It was all about motherhood. I was very inspired as a mom. That was a huge pivotal moment for me. I think a lot of moms feel that way. And yeah, everything kind of changed when I had my daughter. So I posted about my journey as a new mom.
That's awesome. And so from that point of blogging and kind of getting those digital reps in, right?
Yeah.
Finger reps in and typing, um, how did that turn into creating your own business? I mean, I think you worked for others before and then you pivoted. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, so I mentioned that I started doing the blogging thing because I had an online business. That business had nothing to do with marketing. It was
Mm.
I was making tutus for babies.
Ooh.
Yes, very random. And I quickly learned that I actually liked the marketing a lot more than the making of the tutus. So I started doing marketing campaigns for corporations. It started out as freelance projects, and then I went into digital marketing agencies and worked there. Then I went into like larger corporations, working in-house. And then 2020 happened, and the Black Lives Matter movement took off. And that was the first time that I saw companies were really careful with what they said in their marketing. And marketing was always like, I loved it and I also hated it. Like, I love the creativity and the strategy and the psychology. I'm a huge psychology nerd. But I
Yep.
really did not like the manipulation. And I was always like, well, I guess that's just marketing. And one day I'm going to find my thing and it's not going to be manipulative. Right now, this is paying the bills, so I'm going to keep doing it. But yeah, when 2020 happened and I saw companies totally shift their attitude around the impact of their marketing on humanity, not just profit, I was like, oh, okay, wait, this is my chance. I am only going to do anti-oppressive marketing. And I was canoeing with one of my really good friends and telling them that I was thinking about making this pivot. And I was like, wouldn't it be funny if my, slogan was decolonize your copy? And we all started laughing and they're like, I dare you.
Yep. Oh
And
yeah.
then I did it. And I was like, okay, you know what? I'm just gonna go all in on this. And I was really nervous, but I'm still here. So that's a good sign.
I love that. Like actually canoeing. I thought you said like canoodling or noodling.
No,
No, you
no,
were actually
we
out
were
there.
canoeing.
And let's well, I mean, we all know this. I think certainly you've touched on it. I think in some of your LinkedIn posts, I've certainly touched on it in terms of the power of nature as a creative force, as a
Yeah.
muse, right? Being out there, away from our desk, away from the ring lights and the computers and the retina screens, being in nature and on the water just allows us to tap into different parts of our brain. And also in my coaching, when people do laugh and think like, oh, it's this silly idea, dare me, or maybe
Yeah.
one day, those are the moments of insight and
Good one.
inspiration. And I
Mhm.
think it's really awesome the people that actually follow those ideas and those nuggets of
Yes.
inspiration versus the people who, file that under like, oh, would be nice, would be a nice dream, but I can't do it now, or I don't think it's right for me. So the fact that you ended up pursuing that and it ended up, making its way not only into your headline on LinkedIn, but like into the brand that you
Yeah.
represent is pretty awesome. So talk to me about the first couple of months or however,
Mm.
kind of the nascent phase of your new business. What were the highs, the lows, the struggles?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so I put it on my LinkedIn cover image, decolonize your copy. And anti-oppressive marketing was in my headline. And
Yeah.
I was most nervous about how this would be received by my peers in marketing.
Mm,
I
mm.
didn't want to come across as this like holier than thou marketer,
Yeah. Yeah.
being all preachy and stuff. And then the other concern was that people would not know if anti-oppressive marketing actually works, like from a profit standpoint, because all of
Starving
those,
artist, right? Like a starving artist.
yeah,
You're
like
doing
does
good, but
honesty actually sell? Probably not. So I was not sure how that was going to go. And then the thing that sealed the deal for me, I got a message from someone who was in the diamond industry. And they messaged me and were like, hey, I think we'd be a great fit. I'm looking for a copywriter. Blah, blah, blah. I'm in the diamond industry. And so diamond industry was a red flag for me from the get-go. And I was like, okay, how do I respond and not be rude.
Hmm.
So I just politely said like, yes, my focus is, industries that care about humanity. So I do want to say that I only work with brands that do that. That was my first time actually saying that to a prospect. And they convinced me that they're the way that they operate is totally humanity, humanity first. And they wanted to get on a call. So I got on a call with them, and it was a horrible, horrible call. It definitely was not, it was all the gross things. It was manipulative. The person was a womanizer. It was so many horrible things in that call that while he was talking, I wrote out a script on like how to voice, that I think that he's absolutely out of integrity and I would never work with him. So I did that and I was shaking and I got off the call and then I was like, yeah, that's it. I'm like fully committed to this. I am absolutely not taking on any clients who are not aligned with anti-oppressive marketing. And it's okay to not know what that is, but once I explain that to you, if you're not down with that, I'm not working with you. I'm not going to use my copywriting skills and my marketing skills to help you exploit people on the planet even more. I think marketing in particular is really in a good position to leverage that either way. Like we can make things worse or we can make things better. And so that was a big moment. That was my first post. I posted about that after that incident. And then from there, it like lit a fire in me and I just had so many posts that had to come out. And I started posting 5 times a week and I was like, let me just do this for 2 months and see what happens on LinkedIn. And it was really great because what ended up happening was people like you and a whole bunch of other people who really resonated with it came into my sphere. And the opportunities showed up. So yeah, it was great. It happened really fast.
Yeah. And you mentioned you were shaking. So like the way he was treating you and talking to you and making you feel the way you were feeling, it's kind of like the harassment videos of like, this is what not to do.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And I'm of the belief that, I mean, life, you can't baby proof life. We can try, but those moments, as awful and pleasant, as cringy as they may be, they are clarifiers for us. It's like, oh, I know at least what not to do or how not to do that. And in your case, it sort of opened the floodgates for like, so many more blog posts and so many more ideas. And I'm not happy that you had to go through that, but I'm happy what came out of that,
Totally. Me
because
too.
I got to meet you and learn from you and through
Yeah.
osmosis, and I read tons of your content. I mean, I don't know, are you active outside of LinkedIn? Because that's kind of how I know you. Like the world outside of LinkedIn no longer like exists for me. So talk to me. How do you operate? How do you kind of share yourself online? Is it LinkedIn primary, or is it just one of many
Definitely.
channels?
It's only LinkedIn. The reason I actually went on LinkedIn in the first place is because I was on an Instagram detox, which I'd never done before. And I was like, you know what? I've never done an Instagram detox and I hate that it has such a hold on
Mm,
in my time.
mhm.
So I was like, let me just give it up for a month. And that turned into like 4 years now, which is
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I need to market my business though. So let's go to LinkedIn because LinkedIn is boring. And I don't think LinkedIn could like get me addicted to a platform like Instagram.
LinkedIn was boring.
LinkedIn was totally boring. And now I absolutely
Yep.
love it.
Yep.
It's my favorite place to be.
Mhm.
And I am purposely not letting myself go anywhere else
Yeah.
because I really believe this is one of the things that I talk about. Like business owners, there's also the impact on us, the anti-oppressive impact of marketing on us, because we are
Yeah.
told to be everywhere, Instagram, Twitter, or whatever it's called
Totally.
now. LinkedIn, we need to be blogging, we need to be doing SEO and email. And it's just so tiring,
Yeah.
especially as a solopreneur. Like, how many hats are we wearing in a day? It's just not possible. So,
And a parent, you've got a kiddo, like you've
yeah,
got a life outside of LinkedIn, right?
yes, exactly. And I also believe in the power of focusing. So I am only on LinkedIn and I do have a newsletter. So I've
Yeah.
got a mailing list, but no other
Good.
socials.
Yeah, and I'm so many points of resonance there. I went off Instagram around like the time of COVID because it was just a lot of
Oh
like
yeah.
doom scrolling, and I was like, enough. So I went off. It was supposed to be for a year, and I think I was off for 2 or maybe even 3, like more than two
Yeah.
years solid, and
Yeah.
had it off my phone, and it was the best thing since since sliced bread for me. I'm back on it. I jumped back on the bandwagon, but I don't check it very often anymore. I finally have this healthy relationship with it, but it took that distance, right, of a couple of
Yeah.
years of not touching it to get detoxed. So I'm grateful for that. With LinkedIn, it is my jam and my marmalade, as I like to say. But
Mm.
someone taught me like diversify just in case, right? Like
Right.
LinkedIn. So I do also have a newsletter that I put out monthly and other channels, but LinkedIn is my primary because that's where my people, my HR people, my learning and development people, my executives, they do go on LinkedIn more so than other platforms. So that's my
Yeah.
sandbox. That's where I like to play.
Well,
Um,
I also
yeah, go
think
ahead.
that like if multiple platforms is what lights you up, you know,
Yeah,
like different people, different things. So
sure, sure.
that's if you love that, then be on all the platforms. But if it feels really
Absolutely.
draining to keep up with, then
And there are tools, I'm aware that there are tools where you can kind of click once and it kind of posts to
yeah.
all of them, but I
Mhm.
like to have a more tailored approach. And right
So
now it's just me. And I mean, listen, if the business evolves in a different direction, could
yeah.
potentially hire somebody. Right now I'm happy with a business of one. And so I have to kind of, the word used is like focus, right? I want to be laser focused on what I do well. And people have told me that I do LinkedIn
Yes.
well. And
Yes.
I'm proud of that because I've
Yeah.
been on for like 15, 16 years. And the
Mhm.
first decade or so, like crickets, it was
Right.
very corporate and dry. And
Yeah.
I think I'm part of the new generation of people who, for better and for worse, it's got elements, I think, of Instagram. It's got elements of
Yeah.
Twitter now. It's a little bit more sassy than it ever was,
Yes.
the good and the
Well,
bad. But great to hear. So talk to me about your ideal clients, because I know that there are certain people that just gravitate towards your awesome energy. That's a fact. I want to hear your perspective.
okay. So here's my like very non-marketer approach to that question. You know, marketers are all like, know your ideal client, you got to have an ideal client,
Yep.
and really don't market to everybody. That's like the worst marketing advice you can ever receive is to market to everybody. But I was so unsure of who would resonate with anti-depressive marketing
Mm,
that I kind of went the opposite way around. I was clear on my messaging. I knew what I stood
yeah.
for. I knew my angle and all that stuff. And I had no idea who would be interested. So I did not define my ideal client in the beginning. I just put out my messaging and saw who came.
Yeah.
And there were definitely patterns. There were lots of DI consultants, people
Mm,
in the DI field.
yeah.
Tons of them came through. As well as therapists. There are service providers. And the thing that they all have in common is definitely their values.
Yeah.
So everyone who works with me is very intentional about the impact of their business, not just in marketing, but in all realms. And they have no idea how to do that in marketing. It's not as straightforward. Anti-depressive marketing is a fairly new concept. There are a few people out there who are talking about it now, which is great, and I hope that it spreads even more. But people don't know how to apply that to their marketing materials, and they really want to. Like they
Yeah.
genuinely, sincerely want to do better in that, and they don't know how. So those are my people.
Yeah.
Typically DI service providers and therapists, coaches. Yeah.
Yeah. And the truth is, it's not a single person. It's a person who puts purpose and people over profit. And that could be any field, that could be any industry, that
Yeah.
could be any
Mhm.
geography, right? So I think it certainly makes sense because you're talking about values that you wouldn't say, hey, it's only like a 35-year-old, soccer mom or
Yeah.
something like that. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I have chosen to work with personal brands, only because there's a lot of personality that comes out in my brand. And I want people to bring more of that, especially on LinkedIn, because
yeah.
they feel like they have to be very quote unquote professional and, suit and tie and
Yeah.
all of that. And there's such an opportunity there. Plus, I feel like it's so freeing to just not have to code switch from
Oh
work
God.
me to,
Yeah.
you know, home me. It's tiring. And that's one of the advantages of having a personal brand is we can just be humans. So I like working with personal brands for that reason.
I was chatting with my friend Pavel, and he speaks to he's sort of redefining what professionalism is and means and can be, and
Mm,
talking about the code switching and how that's just using up all that cognitive load and cognitive
yeah.
energy and such an expenditure of energy that can be used for actual work or for creative work, innovative work,
Yes.
collaborative work, as opposed to wasting it essentially on trying to be the person that you think you should be. That's a topic for another day, but I'm so glad
Yeah.
that it
Big
came
talk.
up today. At the same time, there are brands. I think there are so many brands, small brands or big brands, that would totally kill it if they hired someone like you, because it would allow them to. I mean, there's always that risk of greenwashing, essentially, of like
Yeah.
pretending to be something that you're
Yeah.
not. But I think there are some disruptive brands out there that are putting purpose and people over profit,
Yeah.
and or want to, and I think they would absolutely benefit from working with someone like you. But that's just my humble opinion.
Well, thank you. I foresee that at some point in my future, for sure.
Hmm.
But because I get very distracted very easily, I like to like do new things all the time.
Yeah,
I'm just trying to focus on personal brands for now.
yeah,
And I feel like the universe tests me all the time because I get people in my DMs being like, "Hey, we're a corporation. We really like what you do. Would you work with us?" And I'm like, "Ah, tempting." And they probably have a lot of money, but yeah, I think so far I'm happy with the fact that I've been able to just stick to one lane for now, and
yeah,
then the time will come when I
absolutely.
back out
Yeah,
into, yeah.
and
Big.
you do you, and you don't need a man telling you what to do. um the invitation there is to talk with them and interrogate them and be like, do you meet my criteria, right? Because if
Yeah,
they
yeah,
don't, they
yeah.
don't. But
Yes, absolutely.
almost like a consultant. But you'll, like you said, when the time is right for you, it's going to be right. I just know that my personal agenda is I want all good companies, or all companies that want to improve, right? Because let's
Yeah.
face it, there are some bad apples, but the ones that do want to improve, to have someone like you at the table. That's
Yeah.
my agenda.
Me too. Me too. I like that.
Um, I would be remiss if I didn't ask about kind of the challenges, right? So some of the, maybe not the dark times per se, but what were some of the hardest things, or lower points when, in your entire career? So this could be yesterday, it could be 15 years ago. What were some moments of that inflection point in your humble opinion?
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, the first thing that comes to mind is when I was part of a networking group that is international, and I
Mhm.
won't name them, but they're an international networking group. We met every week on Wednesdays early in the morning,
Mhm.
and you're supposed to get up there, and everybody has like 30 seconds to a minute to do your spiel. And you have to show up with 2 referrals for people in the room.
Mm.
And if you don't do that 3 times, you are kicked out.
Ooh.
It was very strict.
Yeah.
It worked for a lot of people in the room. I also felt like I was the only woman of color. There was about 100 people, and women were maybe like 5 or 6 out of
Oh,
100.
wow. Yeah.
And it was just myself and one other woman of color
Yeah.
in that group. And I just thought at that point, this was earlier on when I had just started, business. And I was like, oh, I just really suck at business. Like, I don't know how to do this because I feel like I don't know what I'm doing in that room. I feel like I do not belong at all. Um, and I really tried to give it a go. I was in there for 2 whole years.
Oh my goodness.
And I
Wow.
pushed myself. And
Yeah.
it was one of those things, I believe in exploring like outside of your comfort zone. And I do that all the time. But this
Yeah.
was very triggering for my nervous system.
Yeah.
Um, I did not enjoy it at all. It was not my vibe. For the most part, not everybody. It was not my people.
Yeah.
And talk about code switching. Like I am still tired from doing that
Ah,
from like many,
yeah.
many years ago. I just felt like, yeah, I had to just be somebody who I wasn't, to try and fit into that group. And that was really tough. And it had a big impact on my self-esteem as a business owner.
Mm,
So that was a low.
yeah.
And now I am very protective of my energy in my business.
Hell
So
yeah, you are. Hell yeah.
yeah, I don't say yes to everybody who asked me to be on their podcast.
Thank you. It
I
means a
don't
lot.
say yes to all the speaking gigs and all of
Yeah.
that. And that was because of that experience, because
Yeah.
I can't go through that again. So yeah.
Well, what comes up for me, because even though I'm not just a career coach, I'm a coach on a good coach can coach anyone on anything, right? It's all about
Mhm.
people skills and soft skills and self-reflection. But when I started in my own doing my own thing, it was primarily career coaching and job search coaching. And kind of when you were saying, hey, you kind of overstayed your welcome. You were there for 2 years. You tried. You did, everything you could. I see, and I've done this too, by the way. I'm not holier than thou in any way, but I see that in some of my clients or earlier on, they would overstay their welcome at companies that were either toxic or just not the right fit, or they weren't growing and learning. They would overstay by not years but decades.
Oh, oh, ouch.
And
No.
so what happens is what that does to your body, your brain, your spirit, your soul. I mean, it sucks
Yeah.
your soul dry. And you can't be your best self at home or in the post office or in the grocery store if the thing that occupies most of your waking hours is either draining or toxic or just plain not fun,
Oh
right?
my gosh,
So
seriously. Yeah.
it's a privilege. Like the statistics are wild in terms of depending on where where you look, like 50%, 30%, 40%, 80% I've seen of people who don't love their job or who don't see themselves in their job in several years, not because of layoffs, but because they just don't love it. So the numbers are staggering in terms of people who don't love what they do. So yeah, that comes up a lot in terms of like, okay, so you've tried, you've put in your time, you've paid your dues. What's next? How are you gonna, like you said, preserve your energy? And that
Yeah.
is, I think, the thing that I learned now almost in my 40th year in the last decade of like, hey, I can say yes to a lot of things, but at what cost?
Yep. Oh my gosh, yes. And I also want to say that when I was working for people,
Mm,
um, that was really hard on me. If I was in a job where I didn't feel like I could express my creativity
mm-hmm,
or that I really didn't care about my job, my body would just completely betray me. And like, I'm talking, I would fall asleep in the middle of the day at my
yeah.
desk uncontrollably every single day.
Wow.
This was when I was in accounting.
Yeah.
I thought that I was an accountant. Well, I was told that I was an accountant, so I was told to pursue that career
Mm,
path. And I was
mm,
like, okay, that doesn't feel like me, but I tried. And I just couldn't, yeah, I didn't stay in a job for more than a year.
yeah.
I went from one job to another job to another job to another job because I was like, yeah, you know what? This is not doing it for me.
Mhm,
And this is why I have to be a business owner. And it still like shows up in business because we still have to make those decisions. Like, I
yeah.
need to choose the right projects, the right clients. I need to create the offers that are energizing for me, even if they're hard. So it's the same sort of struggle,
Yeah.
but yeah, I if I'm not into what I'm doing, my body will just shut down and like check out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The number of stories that I see on, say, LinkedIn about, because LinkedIn again is professional first, but it's become way more personal since COVID.
Yeah.
The number of stories that I read every single week, even every day, about people who talk about what that does to working at a company or a corporation, to your body, to your mental health, social health, physical health, all of it. Um, and then of course as a coach, I'm like, well, you can't really change a 10,000 person organization overnight,
Yeah.
but you can change or reframe if you want. You can either leave or change the way you show up at work, or
Yeah.
reframe it, or leave or leave or leave or leave, right? Like you can almost always leave. As hard as that may be, there's always
Yeah.
a cost and a risk, but here is what you stand to benefit. And I think so yeah, a lot of personal stories on LinkedIn talking about kind of like what corporate life did to people.
Uh-huh.
I'm big on take what corporate life taught me
Yeah.
and use it, and now I use it for good, right? I use it to empower my clients. I use it to kind of sometimes laugh about the absurdity of like working in an office from 9 to 5 or 9 to 6. Like, we're not involved for that ish. It's
Yeah.
wild, right? So
Yeah.
it can be a source of joy and fun after the fact. Because when you're in it, it's anything but fun.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely put in my hours at corporate, and towards the end of it, I found my voice in being able
Mm,
to say no and stand up for myself.
mm,
And I think a
love it.
lot of that had to do with the fact that it was an interesting setup where I was technically a freelancer, but I was there for like many years working more than full
Yeah,
time. I don't even know if that's
yeah.
legal. But as a freelancer,
Permalancer, I think someone referred to that as a permalancer. I don't know if that's accurate, but
oh, yeah, I don't know.
there's a term for everything, right?
Yeah, I don't think that's technically allowed, but there
Yeah.
I was full-time freelancer for a while, and it gave me a bit of a distance from the company where I felt like I could say that I don't want to do a project because it's against my values. I
Yeah.
was a pain in the ass, and I'm pretty proud of that. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Change and progress don't happen if we just accept the status quo. So I
Yeah,
mean,
exactly.
um, couple of questions I had. So you talked about that sort of networking, that very contrived, calculated, regimented, structured networking organization didn't quite work for you. I think I know which one you have in mind, or similar ones that I've had some experience with. They're
Uh,
not my vibe. If they work for you, great. If they don't, that's awesome. But have you found a network of either not like-minded necessarily, but like-hearted people now? Do
oh
as opposed to
yeah.
that?
Definitely. I mean, I don't go to any networking events. Um, but I recently went to Jess Campbell's nonprofit conference in LA, and I gave a talk in person. And so
Ooh.
public speaking is not, it's not that it's not my favorite thing to do. I wish I was more comfortable with it, to be
Mm.
honest. Because I feel like if I'm comfortable, I'd be really great.
Well,
But
yeah. I mean, if you just said what I'm curious about. If you said what you're telling me, I mean, I think everyone could benefit. But what was that talk about? What did you focus on in that
yeah.
speech?
I talked about anti-depressive marketing.
Hmm.
And it was a 90-minute talk, which is the
Ooh,
longest talk
that's a
I've,
TED talk. You basically gave a TED talk.
it was like the longest by a long shot. And
Mm,
usually I get really, really nervous for those
yeah.
kinds of things. I said yes to Jess because I know Jess and I know that she's my people. So I had a
Hmm.
feeling that when I walked into the room, my body will respond accordingly to, depending on who's in the room and how comfortable I feel.
Yeah.
So I went in there, and there were a couple things that had happened in my life in that week. A really good
Wow.
friend of mine had passed away.
Yeah.
And it was a complete shock to me. Um, and it kind of, I don't know, there was a switch in my brain where I was like, you know what? Nothing really matters that much. Like,
Yep.
what am I
Yep.
going to be freaking out about? It kind of puts things in perspective. And it was really weird because for the first time, I had no butterflies. Butterflies is a wonderful word for something that feels really shitty,
I
by the way.
know. I know.
It was
Like
really like it was
roaches,
a throw
roaches
up.
in our stomach. No
Yeah,
offense to roaches, but like most of us don't.
that's more accurate. Roaches. Yeah, there was none of that. I got up there and I felt completely relaxed and at home on that stage. And it was because of the people in that room.
Yeah.
And definitely props to Jess for making that atmosphere what it was.
Hmm.
And yeah, so I had a really positive experience. And, after I gave the talk, there was a networking vibe where you talk to people, and I had
Yeah.
lunch with them. And it was very different from the other experience that I described earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were all just being ourselves, and
Yeah.
it was lovely. And I knew that as much as that was their introduction to anti-oppressive marketing, that was something that they valued.
Hmm.
So I think for me, values alignment makes a big difference. I'm okay with people having different opinions. It's not that I need to have everybody agree with me.
Mhm.
But there are certain topics around, causing harm where if we disagree, then that's probably not gonna be my vibe.
Right. And
Yeah.
and Frank, I mean, I've been to my share of in my former life as an HR guy, a recovering HR guy, I call it, and now a coach. I've been to my fair share of HR, learning and development, training, coaching conferences. Some have been meh, some have been amazing. If somebody states kind of basic things that we all know, it's a forgettable, wasteful conference. But if somebody says something that's salient and that's maybe not necessarily a hot take, but that's different or you haven't heard of it, then it becomes memorable. So I actually prefer people who are a little bit more opinionated because I
Right.
stand to learn either because I agree or because I disagree, and then it sort of challenges me to think through and parse why I disagree and make my
Yeah.
case. Um, but then you're right, like, does it matter? And I think it's almost maybe a false binary, but it is a binary. It's like you either do a crappy job and people forget about you and it's like, okay, nobody cares, or you do a really great job and you resonate, for better and for worse, you resonate with people, and that's awesome. That's a success. So at the end of the day, why do we, and you're not alone, like fear of public speaking and cringiness and awkwardness and anxiety around it is one of the top fears or top dislikes.
Yeah.
Um, it's something that for a lot of people doesn't really quite get better, but people get better at public speaking. The
Yeah.
anxiety internally may or may not go away. Like Adele, I
Yeah.
think she still to this day performs and has those butterflies or those roaches in her stomach, but she does it anyway, and she does a fantastic job. It doesn't get in the way of you performing and executing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
I agree. And I think that there are like somatic practices that we can, tools and stuff that we can tap into. One
yes.
of my, this is a weird one, but it really helps me get the roaches out are burpees. So before I go on stage or do a presentation,
No.
I will do as many burpees as I can to get that feeling out. And it definitely
Oh
works.
my goodness. That's
Yeah.
amazing. I can try that, but I know because I err on the side of being very sweaty. I'm just gonna show up and I'm just gonna be sweaty and I'm gonna have to have a good excuse for that. Like I just did 20 burpees for no reason, except there was a
Yeah.
good reason.
You can blame it on
Um,
me.
yeah, no, I'll blame it on you and maybe you'll get some business out of it, right?
There you
Because
go.
you talked about personal brands, like everybody or most people have a personal brand, right? So
Yeah.
the market share or the market has grown in the last few years. Everybody knows that whether it's for a job search,
Yeah.
for interviews, for networking, for entrepreneurs, having your own strong, clear, memorable brand is awesome. It's not something that people did 10, 15 years ago. And now
Mm.
we've got influencers on social media and everybody and their mother is a coach, right? So um, I think there's a lot of opportunity there.
Right.
Um, so how can people learn about what you do? Tell me like the name of the website, the name of the company. Like how can people learn more about what you do? What would you
Yeah.
say?
Okay. Well, the name of the website is my name. So it's just nataliasanyal.com. But really, like, I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn. So that's probably the best place to connect with me.
Yeah,
And I mean, like, send a connection request if you want to. Um,
yeah.
I would love to connect with anyone that is listening. So yeah, you just search my name on LinkedIn and I'll pop up and come say hi.
And there's joy, there's levity, there's also clarity and no nonsense. It's like what you stand for, and it's very attractive to me anyway. It's very powerful and attractive and awesome. And I think you'll agree with me, but it's okay if you don't. It gives other people permission, empowers them to say, "Hey, I can learn from that, or maybe I can hire someone like you to clean up my brand and make sure that those values aren't just in my head or in my heart. They're
Mhm.
out there on paper and online and on social media. Because if people don't see it, then it doesn't exist, right?"
Yeah, I hope it has that impact. That is what I'm trying to do in every post. So
I have nothing but gratitude for you. I am so grateful that you showed up. I mean, that you said yes. I knew you would show up because you're integrous. You have that integrity. But I'm just grateful that you said yes. Like I said, heart for you. And I'll include all that information on how people can get in touch with you when I publish this. I think people just are going to have an amazing journey because that's what I had when I went on your LinkedIn all those a couple of years ago. I was like, this is a really interesting, unique take that immediately resonates. I don't know why, but it does. And I think that is an experience that many people will have if they so much as spend 5 minutes on your or 3 minutes on your LinkedIn profile.
Thank you. And thanks for doing this with me. It was so
Yeah.
fun, and I'm so honored to have been invited.
And this reminds me of my pleasure. This reminds me that I used to be so terrified of being recorded, absolutely terrified.
Way.
And it got better with time. It
Yeah,
got better with some of those somatic practices, with
yeah.
awareness. Also, now I'm a coach and I help others overcome that fear. So I'm glad that I'm practicing what I preach, because otherwise I'd be a hypocrite.
Yeah. You're great. You're
So,
great.
yeah, appreciate you. All right, I'll be in touch. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Take
Thank you.
care. Bye bye.
Bye.